And we are live. Hey, we've already got a bunch of folks waiting on us here today, so that's really terrific. And I need to get the Instagram live signed on for us here. The folks on Instagram, by the way, unfortunately, because of the way the Instagram is and what they do and everything, you'll be able to hear my guest today, but you won't be able to see him. I hope everybody's having a good day. We are. Let's just get right. He's one of my best pals in the world. He is a multiple-time New York Times best-selling author. He's a member of the Professional Speakers Hall of Fame. He's one of the good guys in the world. What can I say? Please join me in welcoming my pal, Larry Winget. Larry,
what do you mean Instagram people can't see me? That's the best part.
Just those on Instagram. And if you're on Instagram, come on over, because we are live on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. We're going to replay this on LinkedIn, and we also, for the first time ever, are on our UBS Insiders page as well, so that folks that are in the Insiders can take a look and all that. So we've got some good friends who are saying hello. And Larry, catch me up. How are you doing? Where are you? How are you dealing with the quarantine and everything else? What's going on?
I am sitting in my house like most people these days. And the only downside for me at this moment is I am eating everything in sight. Because for some reason, when I decided it was stock up time for food and groceries, I thought cookies were the solution. I can eat a dozen cookies for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and when this is all over, years from now, I will have cookies.
We have been talking about the COVID-19 pounds that we're all putting on, and I think that's going to be about where we are. So pretty incredible, pretty incredible. Well, good to know you're staying healthy, and man, we've got just a bunch of folks popping on here to say hello and to check in and all that.
Look at all these
Paul here wants to be quarantined with your bourbon.
My bourbon collection is also getting smaller.
It is. Tell me about that. You've been mentioning that you're kind of on a bottle kill expedition.
I don't know, a real focus right now that if a bottle had about that much in it, it moves to a special bottle kill shelf. So I am narrowing the collection some. Yeah, I'll be down to, I don't know, 250 unique bottles here pretty quick.
What's the max that you've had in your collection at any one time?
322 bourbons was what I had at one time.
And that's not, when Larry says that, by the way, I want to make sure that's not 322 bottles. That's 322 unique bourbons, correct?
That's right. And of course, then there's 50 scotches and 50 tequilas and, 100 other various different kinds of liquors and liqueurs and rums and all those other things.
We got a lot of folks. We got a lot of folks that are. It's just like toilet paper. If you want to send cookies, they would be happy to donate that. My cousin Geraldine is the manager of a Dollar Tree store back in Indiana, and they were expecting, I think it was 7 pallets of toilet paper, and instead they got 12. So she pulled a couple packages off and shipped them to me.
Wow.
I literally saved your butt.
Well, she did. Quick to remind me, if you're brave enough, anything can be toilet paper.
Yeah. Well, seeing some of the local newspaper is kind of inspiring, isn't it? It's oh man. Well, Larry, give us some. One of the things that I've talked about here, and you and I have talked about, is that we really shouldn't be listening to all the noise out there. We really should be focusing on experts. Tell me how you, I know you agree with that, but could you a bit for us and why that's so important to you?
Well, Karen from Facebook is not an expert on the coronavirus, and yet Karen from Facebook seems to get as much credibility as Dr. Fauci or Dr. Birx these days. Listen, there's just a lot of noise. And I think when we come from a place of fear and anxiousness, and in some cases desperation, we're willing to look to about anybody. And that's a mistake, because not just anybody has an answer for us. We all respond to this in a variety of ways. We all respond to tragedy in a variety of ways, but I think it kind of comes down to three main ways. And you want me to talk about those? I'd be happy to.
Yeah, let's talk about what are the three main ways, then, Larry?
You know, I think we see optimists, pessimists, and realists. Those are the three ways we respond. There are pessimists out there right now, and you see them. We all have some of these people as our friends. I'm getting fewer and fewer of those friends these days because I just can't listen to them, who are all about, this was done to me. It's an external force, and so I'm going to blame the government, and I'm going to blame China, and I'm going to blame bad information, and I'm going to blame the CDC and the WHO. And it's blame, blame, blame. Poor me. This is being done to me. The pessimist has a tendency to become a victim. Then you've got the optimist. And I'm sort of an optimistic guy. I'm not a positive attitude guy, as anybody who knows anything about me knows. But the optimism right now, when you're coming from a place of true fear and desperation, has a tendency to blend over into foolishness. Like, either this won't affect me and I'm 10 feet tall and bulletproof, or I believe I can positive my way out of this. I can happy my way out of it. And again, that's externally focused. Whether it's pessimistic or optimistic, it's all about what's going on out there, whether it's being done to us or we believe we can change the situation and it doesn't apply to us. The realist says, this is the way it is. It is what it is. What am I going to do about it? I think we all have to be more realistic and turn to ourselves and say, what can I do to use the situation to either pivot my business, to be prepared next time something happens, to do a little introspection and retrospection and say, what have I done wrong? What could I do differently? How can I be better? What can I do now? But they take it upon themselves to take personal responsibility for what's going on in their house, their lives, their business, and then create some positive action around their plan.
You know, Larry, one of the things that we've talked previously was I was talking about optimism and realism. And I said, part of the problem in this world is that people think that whatever they think is realism. You know, and part of what I was arguing, and by the way, for those folks that are members of our Ultimate Business Summit, the part of what Larry and I love to do is challenge each other and agree or bat it back and forth. A lot of times we reach the same, Larry said this, and I think it's so perfect. A lot of times we reach the same conclusion, but we different roads to get there. And part of what I'm seeing during this challenging time is people will say that they're realists. Instead, they think that whatever they believe is what reality is. And we've gotten to the point that there's a disconnection between, facts and perception.
Well, I totally agree with that. I think there are people who call themselves optimistic, and what they are is idiots. And
yeah, really.
I mean, really.
No, I agree completely.
I'm optimistic that we can get through this, but you know what? Things are going to be crap for a long time. I mean, they're just going to be crap. You can't pretend it's not crap for everybody right now. It sucks. There's not a bright side to this. And I'm sick of the motivational bozos out there saying, let's look at the bright side. There is no bright side.
There's not a bright side to this.
It sucks. And that's realistic. That doesn't mean I'm being a pessimist. That's saying this sucks. Your business will suffer. Yeah, there's some businesses that are doing quite well. It sucks. We know people are going to die. We've been locked in our houses for a month. We see what's happening in the food industry and the supply chain, and we see what's happening. It sucks.
Yeah.
The only thing we can really do, we can't change. I've never had any influence over the stock market. Man, I've wanted to. I've never had any influence over the price of a gallon of milk or a gallon of gasoline either. I have no influence over. So does it do me any good to gripe about it? Or does it do me any good to pretend it doesn't apply to me? No. I take what I'm given and I do the best I can for me, my family, my life, and my business. That's what people need to focus on.
What question we've got from Charles, and it kind of piggybacks on what you're talking about there, Larry, is that, okay, we're going to say this is the way it is. Okay, so what are some of the specific things that you're recommending that we should be doing right now? I mean, I've talked here before about, it does suck, but as the old cliche says, we've got to try to make lemonade out of lemons. What should we start doing? What's your advice that people start doing right now?
I remember a few months ago, Scott, when we had businesses that we work with who were in a very cash-rich position, and they were looking at capital spending and investing in trucks and doing and expanding their business and new locations and so forth. And I remember being the guy, and we have a tendency to agree and get to the same place, but we take different paths sometimes, as do a lot of us. But my path was always make sure you got a lot of cash on hand, because we've all been caught with our pants down before, personally and professionally, in our businesses and in our lives, where people did not have the reserves. In 2008, it was proven, that was back right when my show Big Spender was on, that if people had had 6 months of personal living expenses saved up, they wouldn't have lost their house. Just 6 months. If people right now would have had 90 days, most people could get through this if they had 90 days worth of living expenses. Most businesses could get through this whole thing if they had 90 days of their basic expenses within their business covered. So I think one of the things we can do now is start looking at, we've got time, start looking at your life, looking at your business, so you can maybe roll back your lifestyle a little bit, curb your spending a little bit, so you never get caught like this again and you actually have some cash on hand. That's one thing everybody can do, is become more self-aware.
I hate to admit this. I'm sure it won't come as a shock to you, pal, but I hate to admit this. But one of the things that I did yesterday was just go through and get rid of subscriptions. These little things that for $9 a month that you buy and you think, well, that's not a big deal. Now some of it is, I had subscriptions to what do you call clip art, or photo subscriptions that I would use for my slides in speeches, right? And so now that the meetings industry is down, I'm not going to go get a whole bunch of new pictures for new slides. So I eliminated those subscriptions, but it absolutely amazed me. I knocked out about $300 a month getting rid of at $9 and $19 a time. And it's just, it's absolutely amazing.
Low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
That's low-hanging fruit.
No, you're exactly
how
right.
long did that take, Scott?
Less than an hour.
And you save $300 a month.
A month, yes. And that's not really.
By the way, the average family of two, which you are, that's about 2 weeks worth of groceries.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other shocking thing to me, it's one thing that I knew kind of intellectually, but it really hadn't hit me in the gut, is how much we were spending eating out. Now, don't get me wrong, I love to go to the restaurant.
Surprise me. I see your pictures.
I love eating out, and I love getting a good drink or a nice bottle of wine. And all of a sudden, Tammy and I are looking, going, holy cow. And that's part of what I worry about for the future for restaurants. I think that we're going to want to get back out. We're going to want to go back out to restaurants. But I also think there's this period that we're kind of looking and going, ooh, boy, we could save a little money by just staying home one more night a week or 2 more nights a week, as opposed to what we've been doing.
I have 2 sons, a cop and a fashion designer. My fashion designer, his whole backup, pretty much the purest aspects of my personality, I got to tell you. But the fashion designer son, his whole backup survival plan was Uber Eats, and realized quickly that wasn't going to work out like he thought it was. So he bought a $40 Walmart grill. Went to Walmart, bought this $40 grill, a bunch of bags of charcoal, and he said, I'm going to learn to cook. And he talks to his brother, who's a great cook. He talks to me. I'm a pretty damn good cook.
You're a great cook,
we coach him through it. And he said, I see no reason to ever go out and buy a steak again. On a $40 grill and a $10 ribeye from Safeway, I can cook a better steak than I can when I go out. And I go, welcome to the real world. And I think that's one of the things people will wake up to.
I think part of the reason I'm putting on weight is my bride is a fabulous cook, but we just did not get out. And, we didn't. She made it the other night that I could get at or at Capitol Grill or any place. And then you look at what it costs you to do that. It costs you to go to a fine restaurant. Don't get me wrong. I still want to go out. I still want to go to restaurants.
Me too.
Packing, and a couple questions that Phil Sorrentino. Hey, Phil, great to see you. The demand for offices is going down. I talked about this yesterday, Larry. I think the business I would like to be in right now is the folks selling office space, because I think companies are going to find that people not only can work remotely about as productively as they're working in an office. Think of the millions and millions of dollars that bigger corporations are spending on office space that basically they can get their employees to finance by working at home.
I think we're going to see a lot of office to condo renos. You're going to see a lot of office buildings convert to condos and apartments. I believe that too. So
I believe that too.
Totally in alignment with you on this, dude.
And our friend Jean says, how and when we have some speakers that are on here, but I think Jean is asking, should we approach meeting planners post-COVID? But I think that also goes into anybody that's in sales in any kind of business. What do we do? And I've talked about this before. Let's see what you would do, Larry.
Well, I just did a couple of days of sales training a few weeks ago, and the advice that I've been giving lots of folks is, if you come back too early and too hard, you're tone deaf. You got to meet people where they are. And where people are right now, for the most part, is that they're afraid and they're hurting. And for us to assume when we go in at this level of energy and people's energy is down here, it's offensive to people. And so if we come back and we're tone deaf and don't meet the client, and this applies to good times as well as bad times, you got to meet the client where they are. You got to understand where their problem is, what they're thinking. And if a speaker right now is coming out selling too hard, it's the same as any other industry coming out and selling too hard. You appear tone deaf, you appear crass, and you appear that you don't care about what the customer is going through. I think we walk a fine line in being of service to people when they need us and positioning ourselves as solutions to the problems they're going through, and cramming our stuff down their throat, which is how they feel.
One of the things we've talked about here before, Larry, is, and by the way, Larry's going to be with us about another 10 minutes or so, 10, 12 minutes. If you want to share this, that would be appreciated, whether you're watching on Twitter or YouTube or Facebook or wherever you are. Please share so that we can get more folks in here. We got a lot of folks with us now. And typically, Larry, when you add all the replay and everything else, I had almost 1,000 folks watch yesterday. So
wow.
It's really something that we're sharing. People want to know, what do we do? What do we, where do we go from there? So we've talked about here before is just that we're trying to bring our answers to a marketplace that hasn't even formed the question yet.
Yeah,
right? I mean, here we are trying to jam our answers down the throats of people that are so confused and in such a state of flux that they don't even know what they're, and I'm that way, other than what I hope people would buy. I don't even know what questions to ask yet, because we don't wear masks. They don't help. No, everybody's going to have to wear a mask, and I don't blame anybody for that. It is that we're facing something new that we're learning about. For God's sakes, if you learn something new and you don't change your mind, you're an idiot, right? I mean, if they learn that helps, then we should change your mind. But it's such a constant state of flux with this thing. I don't think that you can put your flag in the ground just yet.
Scott, we started this whole thing off with talking about who do you go to for resources and the experts and so forth out there. Anybody right now, and I mean anybody, who says, I have the answer for you in this situation, they're idiots too. Nobody's ever been through this situation. Nobody. So there is no expert in this situation. Nobody's ever done this before. We'll never live through this. And we've never lived through this before. Chances are it will never happen like this again. So everybody's solution is a best guess at best. Now, some of it, you got to run it. You have to have a better filter than you have in the past. You have to have this high BS filter, this high, that might work, but it doesn't work for me filter. And that makes sense. Let me test it in a small way filter. And then if it works, you expand it. But you can't just be this funnel that is so open at the top that everybody gets a chance to crap in it. And there's a lot of crap out there right now.
So true. So true. And years ago when I was in TV news, the saying was, if it bleeds, it leads.
Yep.
Which was the way of saying that you put bad news on first. One of the most disgusting things I ever witnessed in a television newsroom was the general manager telling a weatherman to predict snow. Because if we predicted snow and the other station did get higher ratings. That's the viewpoint sometimes. And I think that's part of what we have to remember too, is that nobody and ratings aren't going to improve if you're the station or you're the news outlet saying, hey, stay at home. We're managing this thing. It's going to get better. It comes out of catastrophe and never be another sporting event again. And you're going to run out of money and the government, negativity, whether we like it or not, is part of what draws eyeballs and clicks. And that's what people are looking for.
I'm with you on that totally. And I think that's why we have to, I did a video 4 weeks ago, and I've been really very, very quiet throughout all of this. I don't want to add to the noise. And one of the things is that I talked about in my earliest video where I talked about this is how I have really bad hay fever and allergy problems right now, but I have that every single year. But it's in my head now that my allergy problems, and now we're starting to see a lot of reporting, they have a lot of the same symptoms as coronavirus. Yeah. And so the first place my mind goes when I cough is not, oh, it's my allergy. My mind goes to coronavirus. Now, we need to all expand that line of thinking to what our input is all day long. And if our input, we don't put a shield around it, we will become victims to the horrible and the negative, and we'll seek out more of it because somehow we find peace in seeing the horrible things. That it's like watching a bad episode of Jerry Springer and you say, man, my life sucks. Doesn't suck that bad.
Doesn't suck that bad, right?
And so it seems like in order to make ourselves feel better, we find people whose lives are more at risk and suck worse than ours do. We got to be careful not making ourselves susceptible to that.
Here's a great comment from Paul. I'm glad I read Larry's book. You're broke because you want to be 3 years ago and made changes. So the company now has enough cash to pay our commitments for months. There you go.
And I appreciate that, Paul. I really do. And that's kind of been my message for years. Stack the cash. Nobody's ever been sorry they had too much cash on hand. Nobody.
Isn't that true? Yeah. Cheryl says, yeah, Cheryl, you're right. Our grandparents lived just fine without news on 24/7. And that's another thing, and that's one of the interesting things here to me too. We're discovering all the things that we could live without, is one of the things we're discovering through this period of time. But for some reason, news isn't part of that because we keep tuning into that. That's another thing that we could do really well without so much of.
Isn't that true? I was just talking this morning to Rosemary. I said, I'll never go. And I used to be on average one time a week. And right now, it's not that much. But I watch major newscasts being done just like you and I are talking about now. I said, that studio I go to every week, I'll never go again. They don't need that anymore. I know what they pay that studio for a 4-minute appearance for me. I know how much that costs. I know what they pay the makeup person to brush my bald head down. And that's all over.
It's done.
This is the news. What we're doing right here is the news.
And I think that's why so many people are tuning in to things like this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ford Sakes, our friend the other day, said, what we've discovered is The audience will tolerate less than perfect video if you have perfect sound.
Wow. Yeah.
Isn't that right? I thought about that. We will tolerate. I don't mind seeing somebody broadcasting from their basement as long as I can hear them just fine. And you're exactly right. So when I was on, they sent a car to pick me up, a makeup person to pat me down, the studio that it costs to be there, which includes a camera person, a switching person, a crew of 3, 4, something like that, at least minimum. Now I feel sorry for those folks because it's almost like the waiter that has no place to go. Now, what do we do? How do we? And I think it's going to be like when technology came and we lost a lot of manufacturing jobs. We're going to have to be creative to create new areas in the economy that serves that. Now it'd be a great time to be working at Zoom.
I think Cuban was right the other day when he predicted there'll probably be 50 new great big businesses that come out of the creativity of what we're going through right now. I think we're going to see a whole lot of that going on. I think manufacturing is going to be a good place to be because we're going to say we're not going to rely on other countries. So manufacturing is going to grow. I'm not sure that the restaurant business will ever be what it once was. I'm not sure retail will be. Retail online sales are still pretty good right now. We're going to discover we don't have to go to the mall. So things are going to change, but we have to be able to pivot what our business is in order to stay current, regardless of what current looks like.
Very, very interesting. I heard the governor of California talking today about how restaurants are going to change, and you can expect that your waiter will have gloves on. You can expect
menus.
And disposable menus. It'll be a one-time use. It'll be just a printer like we'd print something on a sheet of paper.
Yep.
And the waiter with the mask on, it's interesting. I don't mind a waiter with a glove on, but when your waiter walks up with a mask on, that's going to take some getting used to. But
I watched Robert Irvine being interviewed, and if you know Robert Irvine, the Iron Chef that does Restaurant Impossible and talks about how to save restaurants on the Food Network. And he said there won't be any more 200-300 seat restaurants coming out of this deal. It'll be much smaller seating, farther apart, which means that they're going to have a lot smaller menu because they just don't need that kind of expansive menu. And that means they're going to carry fewer foods, which will go to food production, which will relate to the supply chain, with how much inventory they need, how many refrigerators they're going to need, all of that. Things will change. How are you going to pivot your business?
Just the supply chain, even in terms of food. We've seen about farmers dumping milk, and then, why do they dump it? Well, because the chain can't get it to any, the restaurants aren't, let's use restaurants as an example. Restaurants aren't using it like they were before. Does that milk go? Well, let's get it to other. Well, it's not set up. There's no way. So if farmers then reduce the size of their herds, now it's going to take it 3 years to get that back because it's 3 years from the time a calf is born until they're ready to really be producing milk in the way that the system requires. You can't just flip the switch. It's not going to be not going to be something that turns around immediately.
That's why, and that's just an example, Scott, of why nobody should be expecting a perfect answer right now.
Right.
Nobody's done this. Yeah. Nobody's ever been through this before. So what you and I do, we offer the best of what we got in the moment based on our years of experience, all of the research we're doing right now and have done for 35 years. Yeah. We're just doing the best we can with what we've got.
Let's catch up with a couple comments here. Bruce is kind enough. Bruce is, I don't know if you know Bruce, Larry, but he is a video guru. He does just some incredible video on social media. And I agree. I've heard some pretty good audio with folks just wearing earbuds. It's pretty darn good stuff. So it gets back to your point, Larry, that we don't necessarily need that. Somebody said, at least you don't have to worry about getting your hair cut, Larry. So that's,
my neighbor caught me in the front yard yesterday and he said, look, Larry, now he has as much hair as I do. He said, for the first time ever, I'm doing my own hair. I said, you have no hair. There was more hair on my bar of soap than you had on your head.
He had somebody else shave his head then? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah. So he's been going and he's damn near my age. He's been going to the barber for 40 years to have somebody buzz his head. And I go, wow, bud, really, just shave it. It's easy.
That's so funny. Charles talking about all the work being done with 3D printers. Yeah, there's going to have Talene, who a friend of mine from back home says, I would rather hear the truth than to wonder how news is false. Thank you. That's yep, absolutely. We've got that. Well, Paul, yeah, I'm wondering when the drones start delivering pizza. I don't know. That's
we actually have a little test thing going on here about robots are delivering food to the doors here in Phoenix.
A friend of mine who now lives in Los Angeles showed a video in her car going to her prescription, and she's at the stop sign. There's a motorized cart with nobody around that's just going down the sidewalk, and it looked like it had a basket or something. So it looked like evidently they're doing some of that in the Los Angeles area as well. Great point from Kevin. Maybe if we learn what we can truly live without, we appreciate the niceties a little bit more. You know, it goes back to the late, great Jim Rohn talking about, you know, if there wasn't night, we wouldn't appreciate the day. If there wasn't rain, we wouldn't appreciate the sunshine. And it's so true. I like this, Bruce. Old West team. Oh, you're so right. Yep, absolutely. We got to pivot and adapt. There's a great classic book, Who Moved My Cheese, talked exactly about that. Well, Larry, we're about out of time. I just wanted to ask you in conclusion, if you were going to say, you know, here's 2 or 3 things that if I were you, I would be doing right now. Because we have, as you know, you have folks that didn't hear us at the very beginning that are watching right now. Anything that you would suggest specifically, things that we ought to do right now that can help us deal with this crisis that we're going through?
You know, Scott, I'm going to not be strategic or tactical at all. I did a post the other day that said that when you squeeze an orange, you get orange juice. You don't get grape juice. You don't get apple juice. Whatever is inside of you is what shows up when you're under pressure. And pressure, like we're going through right now, reveals who we really are. If you're not happy with the results that you've gotten, if you're not happy with the attitude that you wake up with, if you're not happy with the way you talk to other people in your own household, if you're not happy with what's coming out of you, you got to change what's inside of you. And I think this is an opportunity for people to increase really are. And that's, I have become more introspective and decided there are battles I don't need to get in anymore. And there are things that the world will be just fine without hearing a Larry Winget opinion on that. It'll be fine. So it's caused me to become introspective. I'm glad that has happened to me during that. I'm happier as a result of that. And I think that's something everyone can use this time to do, is figure out who they are.
I was talking yesterday about the thing that Mark Sanborn shared with us about what book sales are down is in terms of personal development and growth and self-help and business book sales falling off the cliff. And I think that's really tragic that people are buying books like, everything is messed up and everything is wrong. I think if there was a time that we should be creating our own home university, that we could be studying things to help expand our horizons and learn more and do more, now would be that time, whether it's being introspective in terms of personal development or whether it's learning in professional development. My gosh, now is the best time of all to be doing those kinds of things.
Yeah, it's maybe not the right time to work on your business. It's always the right time to work on you, though. And that's what I wish everybody would do, is take advantage of this time. That we don't have a lot to keep us busy all day long. And Netflix and Prime and Hulu and Apple TV, that's great for a little while. You and I love to watch all that stuff, but take a little time every single day just to work on yourself.
This one's going to be your favorite. Are you ready?
Yeah.
There's a local liquor store that's trained their dog to take your alcohol order curbside.
I don't know where you live, but I'd like to live there. I would love to.
Oh my God. Oh man. So, well, I'm back. Charles, thanks for saying that. Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it. Kevin, always great hearing from you. Bonnie, thank you for being here today as well. Really appreciate it. Thank you for that. By the way, Jeff is my buddy that has the plumbing contracting company in California that he did Clint Eastwood's house. And I told you how he took the 357 Magnums and made those the handles on.
That's cool. I remember that story. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my pal, Jeff. So, well, Larry, thank you so much for taking time today. I really appreciate it, and hope we can do this again sometime down the road. And you're just the best, pal. It's always great talking to you.
Always great. We talk every day anyway.
I know. I'll probably talk to you again in an hour or two.
Exactly. So. We'll talk later.
Yes. All right, man. Hey, thanks everybody for watching today. I really appreciate it. I'll be in tomorrow. As you know, I'm here every day at noon with Daily Distinction. Got a guest coming tomorrow as well, and that is going to be our friend Glenn Morshower. Glenn was the guy that played Agent Aaron Pierce on 24. He's been in all the Transformer movies. He's one of the most seen and respected character actors in the world, and he also is very, very insightful and just has some great ideas. I know you are going to absolutely love seeing Glenn. And by the way, Glenn and I and my pal Ken Walls have a show that's on every Sunday night. Please make a note to watch for it. It's every Sunday night at 8 o'clock, 5 o'clock Pacific. It's the Ken and Glenn Show. They already had the show set up, and then they invited me to join them. And so they named it the Ken and Glenn Show with a guy named Scott. So that will be Sunday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. Glenn and Ken and I are on every Sunday, but Glenn is going to join us tomorrow. And I think you're going to be blown away by what he has to say. He is just absolutely incredible. And as I mention every day, if you like some free resources on what it is to create personal distinction, and also really kind of, as we talked about, be a little more introspective. Think about what your priorities are in life and what your goals are. There's a 14-day audio program. It's absolutely free. All you need to do is go join us at Distinction Nation. Lots of free resources there on what you can do to get through these challenging times and to make certain that you are on top of it. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll be back with Glenn Morshower and more on Daily Distinction. It's coming up again tomorrow at this same time. Thank you for subscribing and sharing to the program. And we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.